Good evening. My name is Carly Reed, Public Information Officer with Pacific Northwest Team 2. Thank you for joining us this evening for our first virtual community meeting for the Cedar Creek Fire. Currently, our acres sit at 3,234. We have a great lineup of speakers for you. We'll be hearing an operational update, weather and fire behavior predictions, as well as from our Middle Fork District Ranger, and concluding with our Team Incident Commander, Mike Minton. Following the presentations, we will have a question and answer session, so please drop your questions into the chat, and we will either answer them here live with our subject matter experts, or our online public information officers will respond to them into the chat. We will first hear an operational update from Kyle Cannon.
Thanks, Carly. Good evening. I'm Kyle Cannon, Operations Section Chief with Pacific Northwest Team 2. So the last couple of days, we've spent quite a bit of effort trying to get situated here on the incident, looking for direct and indirect control options to try to get some line around this fire. With that in mind, we are really focusing on protecting and keeping the fire from moving west towards Oakridge, moving south towards the Highway 58 corridor, as well as moving east towards the Waldo Lake and that area as well. So really focused on how to keep fire from moving in those directions. Starting on the south end of the fire, we really looked hard at trying to find some direct options in here. We did have a hotshot crew that walked up Cedar Creek towards the origin of the fire. I took a good look in there, but due to the steep terrain and the heavy fuels and the large overstory trees, there really wasn't a safe way for those folks to be in there and get that line in. So with that in mind, we've been focusing heavily on the 2421 road, the Black Creek Road. We feel like that's a pretty good opportunity to keep the fire from moving to the south, and so we're utilizing hand crews and heavy equipment to begin to prepare that line to hold the fire from moving towards the south. Once we get out here to the end of the trailhead, we're also exploring options to try to tie back down towards Waldo Lake and have a control line in that area as well. Coming around onto the north side of the fire. We did have an opportunity a couple of days ago. We were exploring an opportunity to go direct around Spirit Lake and work our way around the head of Ranger Creek out to the east. Unfortunately, yesterday was pretty active fire behavior. The fire moved about 1,400 acres and really kind of removed that option as a viable control option due to safety concerns. So with that in mind, we've moved back to the 2417 road, and again, utilizing hand crews and equipment to begin to prepare that and work towards the wilderness boundary to have a control feature that keeps the fire from moving to the north as well as to the west. And then also moving farther out, we're looking at different options to try to have some additional control lines that keep the fire from moving to the west towards Oakridge. So with that in mind, appreciate it and have a good evening.
Good evening, this is Incident Meteorologist Brent Bauer. We've just gotten over one of the hottest days for the last week or so, and very dry, and we're going to start to moderate that a little bit. Now the reason for that is there is a low pressure system off the coast, off Oregon and Northern California, that's kind of moving this way and then will move up the coast. So that's going to bring a little bit cooler temperatures, a little higher humidity. But with that, it's also going to bring the threat of showers and thunderstorms. If we get the thunderstorms in this area, that can bring lightning, which would not be good for the area, but it might bring also some sprinkles, maybe some light rain, even some heavier rain. There's no knowing that it will actually hit the fire area itself, but it's potential. We have to get through that tomorrow, overnight, Tuesday night, and into Wednesday. In fact, there is a red flag warning for abundant lightning with critical dry fuels for the area, and that includes this fire area as well. And that's from tomorrow afternoon through Wednesday morning. Once we get through that, we'll continue on this very slow cooling and moistening trend to where we're about seasonal probably through the rest of the week. And then it's going to look like we're going to start maybe warming up again after that.
Good evening, Patty Johnson, Fire Behavior Analyst with the team. So the fire has been making slow progress since it started several days ago. Nothing extreme out there in terms of rates of spread, but definitely still moving along. The main drivers of the fire out there are the large diameter fuels that are on the ground, large logs. Those are igniting, creating some intensity, pushing it up into the treetops with the lichen's help. When the lichen gets dry enough, it torches the trees and spots ahead of itself. And then it has to build back up again, and that process repeats. So that growth is fairly slow. The two things that are helping in terms of keeping fire from moving too rapidly is the lack of wind. We haven't had a lot of wind to push the fire. And then a lot of the vegetation is still green, the grasses and the shrubs out there. So that slows fire too. Over the next week, you heard the meteorologist say that we're going to be a little cooler, a little moister. That's going to keep the fire in check too. So I wouldn't expect to see a lot of fire growth over the next week, which will give our operations folks a good chance to make some headway out there. That's all I have.
All right, good evening, everybody. Molly Giuliara. I'm the Middle Fork District Ranger and the Agency Administrator Trainee on the Cedar Creek Fire. I've really appreciated the interactions we've had with the community so far. A lot of good questions and a lot of positive feedback. We called this team in. The forest decided that for a relatively small fire, it's unusual to call in a type 1 team. And what we really wanted was a team that would help us look out into the long term. I know a lot of you have expressed concerns about where the fire is east of Oakridge. And so we're really looking at ways that we manage this fire. And likely it'll be on the landscape here until the snow flies. And so we're looking at a lot of different strategies. You heard Kyle talk about some of those. And working with boots on the ground and with our scientists on the computers looking at the modeling. So I feel really confident about our ability to come up with this plan and to have a good season moving forward. So we look forward to your continuing support and cooperation as we work through this. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Mike Minton, Incident Commander for Pacific Northwest Team 2. Did want to take just a minute to give you some context on our incident management team. You heard it described a little bit by Molly, but we are essentially a group of about 60 people that can come in to an incident and really be an extension of the forest or the unit's wildland fire support system. And we help them with management, and we bring folks to the incident that essentially have years and years of experience dealing with pretty complicated incidents throughout the country. This particular team is comprised of people from Washington and Oregon here in the Pacific Northwest, so we do have a fair amount of local knowledge and folks that are familiar with the terrain and the weather and the way that fires behave in this country. So really a good team. We've had a good experience to date. We've been here about 5 days now and have had an opportunity to really form a pretty sound strategy for this fire. I did want to take just a minute and expand a bit on a few things that we heard from our operations section chief, because I know with a public meeting, it's important for you all to have information about the fire that's presented in a way that it gives you some insight as to what's actually happening out on the ground. So we did hear Kyle, our operations section chief, talk a little bit about containment lines that we're constructing and our ability to hold those and use those as final fire perimeter control lines. That's our objective. As the fire does progress to those containment lines and we're able to hold the fire there, those now become final perimeter control and containment lines, and then you start to see containment increase on the fire. So at this point, we don't have cold fire edge to a containment line, therefore no containment on the fire. As that changes, and we make more progress, you'll see the percentage of containment increase. There's a few reasons why we have not been able to reflect that containment yet. One has been weather. We've been able to anticipate and be far enough in front of the fire to make sure that our containment lines will actually be useful, that they will hold. And we're not going to have as much challenge with ensuring that the fire stays in those places. So weather has moderated some of that spread, which gives us a little bit of time to be more successful with that. The other reason is because the terrain in this particular case is very broken. It doesn't have as many continuous drainages where it's had alignment to make progressive runs. Therefore, we've had a little more opportunity to get some of these containment areas identified, and we're beginning to work on those now. So be patient, bear with us. We will start to reflect containment as we make more progress. There's always the heightened sensitivity about the smoke column that is sort of peering above the community, and we're aware of that, we're sensitive to it, and we want to make sure you get timely information about days where we do have a lot of fire activity. The last thing I want to do is just thank the community of Oakridge and the surrounding communities. I know when we bring lots of firefighters into your community, we're impacting your town, we're impacting your traffic, we're impacting your stores, and we realize that. Hopefully all of our folks are behaving courteously, and we really do appreciate your hospitality and your welcoming here in the community to all the firefighters that are here. So thank you for that.
Thank you to all of our guest speakers. A lot of our questions we were able to answer in the chat, but we do have a question for our incident meteorologist. So Brent, is lightning forecast?
Yes, it is. So there's a forecast for the potential for lightning and showers, but yes, there is a forecast for lightning. The main threat will be tomorrow afternoon all the way overnight into early Wednesday morning. It could start earlier than that, but that's the worst of the threat for lightning, and that's over much of this particular area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, well, we don't really have a whole lot of questions except for stuff that's in the chat. So that will conclude our live question and answer session for this evening. Just a reminder for you Oakridge residents and visitors, we have 5 information boards scattered throughout the community that we update daily with fire information. You can also visit our INSEE website and of course our Facebook page to get updated information, check out videos and photographs of the firefighters and fire suppression activities that are taking place out there on your public lands. So if you have any questions throughout the day, please call our fire information line at 541-201-2335, and we will drop that phone number into the chat. Thank you for joining us tonight, and have a great evening.